In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the upcoming major storms crossing the nation. We have one ongoing right now impacting areas like the Ohio Valley, Deep South, and Southeast. We have more on the way later on as we've reached our kind of early peak to the severe weather season, where it seems like we have one event after another constantly, so we're going to be diving into that today. Again, as always, stay tuned for the Storm Prediction Center outlooks at the end of the video, where we'll break down the day-by-day risks of severe weather. Let's take a look at it, and by this afternoon, this video is finally coming out pretty early. We have a 988 over Ohio, kind of south of Cleveland there. We have a lot of severe weather potential here. First off, directly to the east of that low, so there's a corridor somewhere in there, and then also portions of the southeast as well as your two main corridors for severe weather. But as far as rainfall and wind, I mean, we're really seeing impacts along this entire eastern fourth of the nation. We're really seeing all of these states to some extent seeing those types of impacts from this storm. Again, we've kind of pointed this out daily, but I'll do it once again. There's a lot of cold air being infused to the south of this low and a lot of movement to the north from this warmth here around that low. So again, 988 over Ohio, lots of cold and warmth moving around. That creates this intense kind of pattern, and we did see an upgrade just slightly after I uploaded my video yesterday to an enhanced risk here in eastern Ohio, as well as maybe some surrounding regions. So we'll take a look at that at the end of the video, like I mentioned. Let's go ahead and move past this and towards Friday afternoon. We see this low intensifies. It's now down to a 980. We're seeing some rainfall across the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes. Also quite a bit there for the northeast. Also some lighter showers in between, but these are your two main areas for heavier rainfall, I would say. So again, the northeast and then that Ohio Valley and Great Lakes area. This low is really slow to move away, and even by Saturday afternoon, we're still seeing some lingering impacts here for the northeast. This infusion of cold air to the south of the low has moved northeastward, so we're actually seeing quite a bit of cold air here in the northeast during this time. And there is the chance for some mountainous snowfall, especially across the Adirondacks, nearby the Finger Lakes regions, and then the Catskills. Wouldn't be surprised if we're going to see some of the Green Mountains and White Mountains included there as well. But there is that chance of very high elevation snowfall to occur. By Sunday afternoon here, we have these rain showers and potentially some isolated or scattered thunderstorms around for portions of the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes, and then some of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. Meanwhile, we have a storm system developing out west, bringing some snowfall and rainfall respectively, depending on your elevation out there. That's again for Sunday on the 14th. Let's take a look at Monday the 15th, and things are looking a bit quieter. We see more and more storms and more cold out west here, and that is the trend. But a lot of warmth to the east of this area, both for the central and slowly but surely for the eastern states as well. By Tuesday on the 16th, things aren't so quiet anymore. This is very early in the morning, perhaps 3 or 4 a.m. We see a 986 millibar low pressure center here with a lot of supercell potential underneath it. We have a high, a relatively high, it's kind of hard to say a high risk of severe weather because it sounds like the categorical outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. I'm not indicating that. What I'm saying is that there's a relatively high risk for severe weather on this day, especially across portions of Kansas, Oklahoma, and down through Texas. Again, that Storm Prediction Center outlook will be there. This is going to be an extended range outlook, but we do have a lot of information there, and they have expanded that even since yesterday. So be sure to check that out, especially if you're impacted by this. Overall, again, another very major storm down into the 980s at 986. So this is definitely considered major. We're seeing many states all the way from the Canadian border down through the Mexican border being impacted by this system. So a very large sweeping storm is what we're seeing there. By Tuesday afternoon, so later that day, this low drops all the way down to 980. We still have a bit of a cold front here and maybe a little bit of a warm front up to the north here. And the Storm Prediction Center has also issued an outlook somewhere to the east of there for a little bit more chance of severe weather later on that day and into the evening. Eventually, that low does move up into Canada. We don't really see it reach the coast, and the reason being is because instead of these storms kind of moving across the nation like this, where you get the sweeping cold front the whole way through to the eastern states, what we actually see is it kind of just takes a straight shot up there for Canada, and you really end up with these areas here never really getting much precipitation from this system because the track is just too far. Whereas obviously if it moved here, we would see it go into that area and some impacts lingering to the south there. So a very different storm track we're set in. And I think the main cause of this storm track, as opposed to what we were seeing, is this stubborn jet stream, as you can see, that's going to basically be doing this the entire time. So these storms are going to want to move right along that jet stream. They're not going to want to move into the higher pressure and warmer temperatures here out to the east. So as long as we're locked in this cold in the west, warm in the east pattern, that's definitely not transitional. I've talked about the transitional patterns where we see the cold constantly revolving to the east and then warmth building, and then that warmth building into the east, and etc. It kind of just revolves around that circle. This is a stubborn pattern that is really anchored in, and we see the cold wanting to stay anchored into the west and the warmth wanting to stay anchored into the east. And it doesn't really budge here for at least a few days. So that is why these storms want to continuously keep moving up to the north into Canada. And we see it once again here by Saturday on the 20th, 1004. It's basically taken this track so far, and it looks to continue moving up into Canada. So again, it'll likely dodge the east again unless we get some secondary low development underneath. I will say about this low, we do see a dragging cold front, and I do anticipate that this would also feature at least some severe weather once again there by the 20th. We don't really get to see what happens after this because the model run does come to an end, but I will say the cold looks to finally be expanding eastward here by this kind of 20th, 21st time frame, which is a whole 10 days away, so don't expect it too soon. But there is a chance of this starting to move eastward, but at hours 2:40, this could certainly be wrong. GFS model, let's see where we get agreement or disagreement. That first low moves out. A lot more snowfall on this model compared to the European. I would say take this with a grain of salt. Widespread snowfall throughout northern Pennsylvania and western New York. I think that's a little far-fetched here, but this is very close to happening. So you don't like to see this much disagreement. This major low develops across the central states, again in the 980s on this model as well for most of its track. We get that major severe weather throughout Kansas and Oklahoma. I will say this GFS model is looking rather concerning because the severe weather corridor looks a little bit further east, and western Texas, western Oklahoma, and western Kansas are very different than eastern Kansas, eastern Oklahoma, and eastern Texas because we're getting a lot more humidity here. The Gulf Stream really brings a lot of moisture here into these eastern areas, but it usually doesn't move westward and then northward over these areas. So you're seeing drastically drier conditions out here in these western regions than these eastern regions overall. So I think that this is one thing that could definitely worsen this severe weather day is if we see these slow ticks to the east. That's just my 2 cents on it though. A lot can happen, and severe weather is very intricate, but to simplify things, I think that's an easy way to see whether this one's going to worsen or kind of stay the same out west. Either way, it looks very bad for western regions of those states or eastern regions, wherever it hits. It has the dynamics there. We do see that storm moves up into Canada, again, minimally impacting the east. A little bit more on this model. We're seeing some impacts, especially in the mid-Atlantic and northeast there from this system. And then after that point, we do get a cold front that rushes through the eastern states around that Thursday the 18th, Friday the 19th timeframe. This could feature some severe weather along this line, so keep that in mind. Thunderstorms and severe weather would be possible, and colder air would be on the way around that kind of 19th, 20th time frame, although we do see the warmth kind of make a comeback. And then we get in this interesting pattern where these storms are kind of moving across the southeast, way to the south of where they were beforehand. So we get a whole pattern flip and we get a brand new pattern to take a look at. So that would be interesting, but this is the very extended range, so take it with a grain of salt for sure. And then we get these interesting storms moving a lot more in the same way that we've seen throughout this springtime, where they're a lot further south, and we are getting impacts all the way down to the Gulf states here, so much more southern-oriented storms. It would be interesting if we moved back into a pattern like this by about, let's say, the 25th here, like this model shows. Now, the total precipitation, the west is quieting down again a little bit. We've talked about it before, but their main rain and precipitation season overall is the wintertime. And the closer you move to the summer, the less precipitation you expect to see. So this all makes sense, and I would say is really, really in line with what is typical. Right here over the plains states, we see this separation of above average and below average precipitation, where these eastern regions are seeing multiple storms move through these areas, and definitely that is what is leading to a lot of precipitation. The reds being about 2 to 5 inches of precipitation over just the next 10 days, which is highly above average for almost everywhere in there. Total snowfall, no surprise. We're seeing very minimal amounts in the east, lots out west. That's going to be the story for at least a couple more weeks. Again, those Adirondacks, your Catskills, your Finger Lakes regions, and even the Green Mountains and White Mountains are included here, are seeing a bit of snowfall, but that's going to be for those mountaintop locations. Now, the temperature pattern here that we see is going to overall be a little bit cooler in the east for the time being, and we even have a pretty decent ridge out west here, as you can see, with highly above average temperatures there. But this is all going to change here quickly. That's by Friday the 12th, tomorrow, Saturday the 13th here. But all the way by Sunday, we see this flip, and then especially here by Monday, where we have highly above average temperatures in the east, highly below average temperatures in the west, and this wants to stay locked in, like we've mentioned earlier, with this ridge in the east, trough in the west pattern. And look, it really doesn't change too much. We see this warmth staying still. And then finally, around that kind of 18th, 19th time frame, we see this cold front setup. We're not seeing the precipitation here, but we can see that contrast in the temperatures. So it's easy to assume there's a cold front there, where this cold air is desperate to move eastward. We're even seeing some warmer temperatures along the west coast here, which is indicative of a changing pattern. So let's see what happens just over the next couple of days. And we really see it expanding eastward all the way in the Midwest and deeper south now. So perhaps this one will move into the east. Perhaps it won't. Time will tell, but we will continue to track it for you guys. Still by the 20th, 21st, this model indicates the east, at least the eastern fourth, will still be quite warm, but that could be coming to an end here, I guess, is the main point. Now, the Storm Prediction Center forecast, again, the lighter greens is general thunderstorm risk area, so we don't expect severe weather. Anything is possible, but we just expect general thunderstorms to be possible. The marginal risk area is that darker green, and we expect isolated severe weather reports to be possible in there. Nothing widespread, though, is expected. Again, anything is possible, though. That's your level 1 risk area. The 2 yellow areas, Florida and then kind of the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic there, that is going to be your slight risk or level 2. And we expect a little bit more scattered in severe weather reports coming out of there. There could be some clusters of really heavy thunderstorms that bring some hail, damaging wind, or maybe even a couple of tornadoes. And then this orange area over West Virginia and Ohio there, with a little bit of Pennsylvania and Kentucky included. That's where things start to look a little bit more widespread, and we're getting more activity in there. So definitely be on high alert if you're in any of these risk areas. Day 2, a little bit more laid back. We do have this general thunderstorm risk area for some of the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast. Also out west for some of the mountainous west, where we even have a marginal risk, level 1 out there. So again, some isolated severe weather reports are possible there. Day 3 here, 3 general thunderstorm risk areas there for the Great Lakes and Midwest, the Northwest, and then even some of the Southwest there. Then as we reach the extended day outlook here, here's the day 5 outlook. So again, really bad severe weather day potentially here. This is going to be for Monday on the 15th. That yellow area translates roughly to a level 2 slight risk area. And then that orange area roughly translates to a level 3 enhanced risk area, at least for western Texas, western Oklahoma, and south central Kansas. So keep that in mind. I guess that's north central Texas, not western Texas, but you get the point. That area looks to be pretty bad, and this is the highest they go on the probability outlook. So this could be anything from an enhanced, moderate, to even a high. I'm doubtful that it'll be a high risk day, but anything is possible. And again, in the extended range, which is beyond days 3, this is the highest risk they offer. They only have 2 risks that they put out, 15 and 30. Which again is the slight and enhanced approximately. Now, on the day 6 outlook, we actually do have the day after that here. We're seeing a bit of severe weather in the Midwest and some of those kind of deeper south areas like Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee. That is going to roughly translate to a slight risk, but again, these can go higher. We saw a moderate risk yesterday. And that started out as one of these yellow areas, which again is 2 levels higher than a slight risk. So this is kind of just the bare minimum of what they expect, and it can expand beyond that is a good way to look at it. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. We will keep you guys up to date on all of these things, so be sure to subscribe as we do upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.